It reminds me of your maktaba you used to have in Medina.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. We'll probably just be waiting for 30-40 seconds for people to join in. And as the people join in, inshallah, I'll just do a bit of introduction. So, in alhamdulillah nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh wa na'udzu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlil fala hadiya lahu. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Okay, jazakumullah khair everyone for joining in, and absolutely honored to have all the guests today, and some of the guests on a very, very short notice. So jazakumullah khair, Sheikh Ala, Sheikh Kamil, and obviously Sheikh Abdul Rahim for joining in. Now, basically, I'll just set the stage a little bit because, some of you, rather, I think, some of the audience might not have listened to our previous discussion, which happened last week, which was basically a female panel, which was done by Ustaza Temia Zubair and Sheikh Aisha Wazbas. Now, that particular session, we really focused towards providing advice to the sisters, to the wives to be, and alhamdulillah, it was a brilliant session. In fact, I would suggest that any of the people who are joining in today, if you have not listened to that session, then please do so. That is number one. The second thing is that today, inshallah, our you can say our philosophy has been that we have not been giving any cross-gender advice. Okay, so what we are trying to do is that we are trying to advise sisters from the women scholars and the brothers from the male scholars. This is how we are trying to, inshallah, do it. So no one can say that we are patriarchal or whatever the case may be. So now, inshallah, this is the scene, inshallah. Obviously, none of the shuyukh require any introduction, so I'm not going to be going into any kind of introductions. I'll be starting with, inshallah, Sheikh Ala being the senior most here, and as Sheikh Abdul Rahim mentioned, that basically, we are free to bounce off. This is a discussion. Obviously, I'll interject wherever required, but just consider I am not non-existent. Okay. I'll just come with my questions, and obviously the show is going to be open for all the questions. It's going to be taking slightly, more than an hour. Obviously, Sheikh Allah has to leave right at the end of the hour. If Sheikh Abdul Rahim or Sheikh Kamil, if you are also not able to join in after an hour, then please let us know. Otherwise, we might stretch it to 1.5 hours. So this is the scene, inshallah. So I'll be starting with Sheikh Allah, like I said. Now, and I'll be starting with that in the context of the primary responsibilities of husbands, because this is a topic of marital discord. So the scenario is that there is some kind of a discord which probably is going to be taking place in all marriages as it happens. So what is the primary responsibility of your husband in a summarized fashion, if you can please guide us on that, Sheikh?
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Jazakumullah khairan, first of all, most for having me. May Allah bless you all for your time and effort. It's a noble cause. Alhamdulillah, this is something that we're definitely in need of. And I've been doing this for about 30 years, either teaching courses or doing weddings or counseling. And most of people really take a lot of things for granted. So communication is a key. And one of the things that most of the other things that if I put the roof over their head, food on the table, clothes on their back, I'm done. There's a lot more than that. That's just one aspect of your financial responsibility. So if you think that I'm the breadwinner, and that's basically one of the secrets, obviously, that the 20 secrets between the two of them. One of them is that. So she eats from what you eat. She dresses like where you dress. So she lives where you live. For example, you cannot just eat surf and give her crackers and cheese. You cannot wear or dress like Gianni Versace, Giorgio Armani, and you give her clothes from Kmart or Walmart. I don't know where it is in the world. I'm not sure what do you call it, Sheikhna, in the UK? Something like that.
In Turkey now, I think.
Yeah, what is it?
In Turkey, I said.
I'm in Turkey these days. And then,
yeah.
More international. I mean, it's not international, but people know what it is there. Cheap clothes anyway.
Fair enough. And he cannot live in a palace and she lives in a garage. So that's basically the minimum requirement of the financial aspect only. But there's just so many of them. Again, this course takes 2 full days to explain. But there are obviously the responsibility. I tell the brothers, the first responsibility for you, akhi, is the ayah. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nara wa quduha an-nas wal hijara. That's number 1 on this first leave Allah's list. And on the list, it's not just the financial aspect of it and so on and so forth. But the ayah states, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, which starts with, O you who believe. It's conditional. Allah did not say, Ya ayyuha alladhina aslamu, nor did he, Ya ayyuha nas. So Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anh says, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts with, O you who believe, he didn't say, O Muslims, he didn't say, O humankind, or human beings, or mankind. It's conditional upon your belief. So you'll say, Sami'na wa ta'na, we listen and obey, not Sami'na wa asayna. Quarrel, convince me, what's the logic, not yet, make dua for me, and all of that stuff that we hear. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts with that, it's conditional. So it says, Abdullah says, فَبَدَأَ اللَّهُ الْآيَةَ يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كَانَ أَمْرُ يُؤْمَرْ بِهِ أَوْ نَهْيٌ عَنْهُ, which means, if Allah started the ayah with, O you who believe, it will be a command that will be followed, to be ordained upon us, or prohibition to be followed that will be forbidden upon us. So he says, قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ قُوا الْوِقَايَةِ. It was mentioned over 200 times in the Quran, to protect yourself, obviously from the hellfire and the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anfusakum first, that means your leadership, and that's your that's the priority that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you, and the responsibility is given you of the what is the not inferiority, superiority complex. And this is exactly what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you the qawama to be. The qawama is that you're responsible for the sister, to take her away from the hellfire and to go to Jannah, the paradise with you. قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِكُمْ. The ahl is known in the Quran, and Abu Qaisara bi-ahlihi, when Musa alayhi salam with his wife, and Ibrahim alayhi salam with his wife, and so on. So the scholars say ahl in linguistics, they mean family in general, specific in the wife, and so on. So if you really want to know, your first responsibility, my brother, is to make sure that you protect that sister from the hellfire. You take her with you to Jannah. It's not what most of the brother thinks. You know what? I'm the man. Who the man? I'm the man. You know what? She drives Lexus. She wears fur coat. She's got the bling bling. Dude, I'm the man. Who the man? You're a male. You're a male. At this point, you're a male. You're not a man. A man is the one that actually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says fiha rijal. Allah did not say fiha dhukur. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, when he mentioned the Quran, those who come to the masajid, those who make sure that they do with the Quran and Sunnah, Allah said, call them rijal. Rijal, this is ahad Allah. This is they hold on to the covenant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is obviously one aspect of it. The other aspect is وَعَاشِرُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. You know, you've taken an oath. And I'll finish with the oath because it's a very long topic. I want to also get the mashayikh to get their in on it. Most of the brothers will take the oath, for example. Like, for example, 2 o'clock I have a wedding, and I usually say the same thing over and over. I tell the brothers, do you know, akhi, what you're about to do in marriage? I used to ask, but it was embarrassing because not one single brother knew what I was talking about, so I stopped asking. I just share and teach. So do you know what you're about to take? You know what you're doing? They take anyway, it doesn't work. So I said, listen, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned this set right here when you're getting married in the Quran. He made sure that men never take this for granted. He says, وَأَخَذْنَا مِنْكُمْ مِيثَاقًا غَلِيظًا. She has taken a stringent oath from you. أخذنا here, nun al-niswa, not tashdid. Nun al-niswa is not tawkid here. Nun is the feminine tense. That means your wife. Minkum meaning you. Mithaq is the pledge or an oath or whatever it is that you have to you hold on to when you put your hand in her father's hand or you accept an ard al-qabul. This is the strongest oath you will ever take. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ghalidha is not just an oath, and Allah uses that word mithaq between him and the messengers and prophets. But he says ghalidha li'annaka tara minha al-awra al-mughallada, because you see something that nobody else sees. So he says وَأَخَذْنَا مِنْكُمْ مِيثَاقًا غَلِيظًا. She has taken, my brother, your wife has taken the strongest oath you will ever take. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says the huquq, the rights, the best, the strongest huquq, مَسْتَحْلَلْتُمْ بِهِ الْفُرُوجِ. What you have committed to make whatever was unlawful in the private part, your chastity, your aim to become lawful, meaning the marriage contract. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stated that mithaq right in the Quran. That means, my brother, Allah subhanahu wa jalla over 1400 years ago asked Jibreel alayhi salam to descend down from the seventh heaven to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam to tell him to write this ayah in the Quran, tutla ila yawm al-qiyamah, recited Judgment Day, and you will be held accountable for it on Judgment Day, and I'll give you the proof inshallah, but let me give you first the ayah. According to Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, it says, وَعَاشِرُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, deal with them in righteousness and what is known to be good. But according to Jumhur, the majority of the scholars said, hold on to her in the best way possible, and if things don't work out, may Allah protect you from that. Even if she's bad to you, you're still going to have to be good to her. According to the ayah, ihsan, and the definition, the mashayikh know, ihsan is not the istilah in this case, and ta'bud Allah kannaka tara in the hadith, but ihsan, the scholars say, and al-ihsan laysa al-ihsan an tuhsan min ahsan ilayk, walakin al-ihsan an tuhsan min asa ilayk. Which means ihsan being the excellence matter in the behavior towards your wife. You're being good to they're good to you? No, that's normal. That's expected. But ihsan is being good to those who are bad to you. And that's exactly what Allah says. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ الَّذِي تَسَاءَلُونَ بِهِ وَالْأَرْحَامِ. Be conscious of Allah subhanahu wa jalla that you will be held accountable for on Judgment Day. Arham is plural. The wombs, meaning the wombs of her family will come together with the wombs of your family on this day, but you will be held accountable for it on Judgment Day. Again, it's a very long topic, but I'd like to hear the input of Mashaykh and of course we'll learn from them, inshallah. Jazakumullah
khair. Sheikh Mukarti, you would like to add?
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulullah. I think, what Sheikh Ala said, that's the main thing that we need to focus on. And perhaps, obviously, when we talk about what are their rights, we automatically go to the issue of the financial rights. So she has right upon me for me to feed her, to clothe her, that she lives in, but the accommodation. But we don't focus on the most important rights, which he said is that we take them to Jannah. Also, another very important right. I think most of us know the financial aspect of it, so we're not going to go into much detail. Like we said, if we're going to go into detail, we can stay on just on this first question and not go in. So I don't want to really, go too much out on that. But if you look, for example, the other issue is the issue of and how you treat your wife. And making sure that you give them their haqq when it comes to the emotional side and listening to them. Even when you look at the example of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, understand the nature of women, and that's very important. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he used to dislike staying awake late at night. He had the night prayer to have to pray half the night or a bit less or a bit more. So he had a duty, a wazifa behind him. But yet, Aisha radiallahu anha, she said that he would stay awake late into the night listening to her. As she comes and she talks to them, that's the nature of the woman. She likes to talk to her husband. So that's her right upon him. So understanding her nature, treating her fair, treating her good, treating her kindly, that's also her rights upon you. And I believe a lot of the questions are going to come around the opposite issue of the time, because this is a big problem that we have in the ummah, is that sometimes as the husbands, we see that as long as we're feeding them, as long as we're clothing them, she has her house, then khalas, the rest is done. The kids are on her, the household chores are on her, everything is on her. And we're just kind of sitting back and chilling and think we fulfilled our duties. Even when it comes to the children as well. And they're studying, they're eating, they have their clothes, their accommodation. Then khalas, we've done our job. Whereas the tarbiyah and what's our duties as parents is actually much greater than that. So I think those are the key things that really need to focus on. If Sheikh Kam wants to add anything to that quickly before I think we move on, inshallah.
Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulullah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een, amma ba'd. I don't know if I have anything to add, as both Sheikh Ala and Sheikh Abdul Rahim are much more senior to me, and what they've mentioned I think is pretty much suffices on this particular issue of the rights or the responsibilities of the husband. We have the maddi responsibility, the material and financial responsibility, and what's more important than that, the dini responsibility, and that is to make sure that the wife is getting what she needs, that will help her to reach Jannah with you.
Jazakumullah khair, Sheikh. Sheikh McCarthy, now the second question is now basically with regards to this obligation, which is an abandoned sunnah, as we all know, which is actually, and we as brothers, and this is the male panel, this is the brothers panel, this is the youth panel. Now the question is,
are we allowing the sisters enter, or is it it's a man only thing? So we can
no, anyone can enter. Actually,
I'm joking.
This is the male bashing session. You know,
no sisters allowed, huh? Brothers only, huh?
Now the question is that, are we supposed to be helping our sisters, our wives in the household chores? Should we be doing that?
Yeah, obviously we know it's from the Sunnah of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When we look into the hadith and how beautiful the hadith was, when Aisha radiallahu anha, she described how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was, and he kana fi khidmati ahlihi, that he was in the service of his wife, and in the service of his wife, Allahu Akbar. And he would help out around the house. He would milk his own sheep. He would even sew his own clothes and take care of himself. And he was very normal, like anyone else, as she described him, radiallahu anha, alayhi salatu wasalam. But then she said, when it came time for the salat, now the wadifa, the haqq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has come, she said, it would be as if he didn't know it. And he'd help around the house when he has free time. Obviously, he's not taking care of this or attending this for the ummah. He has free time here. He's helping out his family. But as soon as the adhan is called, that's the nidah. That's the call to the prayer. Now that becomes my wadifa. It becomes my duty after that. And he would go directly to the prayer, alayhi salatu wasalam. So creating that balance between where we fulfill our duties and then helping our family, this is part of being like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And many of us, we want to implement the sunnah in many aspects of our life. When it comes to these sunnahs, we kind of want to, min ma yutwa wa la yurwa, as they say, from the sunnahs that you don't talk about too much, that you don't relate. But subhanAllah, I'm going to tell you from the tarbiyah side and from building the family, and the impact I've seen in my own house, and I know many other brothers have told me the same thing. When you implement the sunnah, the impact it has. Because even though, and if you have where you're the bread maker and she's the house maker, and you have that agreement amongst yourselves. So she's doing her wadifa, her duty in the house, you're doing your duty outside. But when you step in to help out, and you'll see the impact it has, you understand why the Prophet ﷺ, and he taught us this sunnah. And he said, خَيْرُكُمْ li ahli. The best of you are the best to their family. SubhanAllah. And sometimes, for example, my wife, maybe she's tired with the kids at night, and she forgets, for example, to do the dishes. And from my way, alhamdulillah, I don't sleep after Fajr. I'm awake, alhamdulillah. So after I finish my session with the Quran, I go in the kitchen. I see sometimes maybe the dishes are there, so I can wash the dishes for her and put it. Or even if we have the dishwasher, using the dishwasher, I mean, you straighten up the kitchen for her. When she comes in, she sees it, the impact that it has on her and how happy it makes her, and that shows her that you're there, you're supporting. It really is a team effort, because we always talk about team, and then you disappear when it comes for your role to step up, or when it's her time to be part of the team, that you expect her to be there. So that's when you have that balance. But it's very important as well that each one knows. And there's another important point I want to point out is that sometimes in the days that we live in, where both husband and wife work, and this is a question that comes a lot of the times by the sisters. I'm working just like he's working. I'm working 8 hours a day. Takes me an hour to get to work, takes me an hour to get home, 10 hours. She has the kids and this. And then he still expects her to do all of the household duties, and he doesn't want to implement this sunnah. So here it's different. If you both are working, your responsibility in the house is actually going to become more now, because it's not the same where she's free in the house, just for that, because she's also, and sometimes she might be paying some of the rent, paying some of the bills, she's pitching in. So now you have to look at in the outlook many of the brothers have, that she has to do everything in the house. It's not from the sunnah anyways, but especially in this scenario where she's out working just like you're working, then here you're gonna have to do a bit more around the house, and Allah knows best.
Naam. Sheikh Allah, now obviously, continuing on the same kind of topic. Now in the West, obviously, this scenario of both husband and wife working is a lot more than how we would have in, let's say, in the Muslim countries, or in the kind of the third world countries per se. Now, developing world. Developing world. Now you can say, yeah. So do you think that this is a question? Because from a Muslim country perspective, to be honest with you, I haven't seen a single household as of now where I've seen the husband helping the wife in the household chores. I haven't. If Brother Kamil has, or if anyone else has, then please let me know. But I haven't so far. So, why is this? Is this a cultural thing? Why is this so?
Indeed, it is culture, because unfortunately, an illness that some of us have is that the back home syndrome, right? It's not necessarily the new generation, because they say home is where they're born, either UK, Canada, or whatever they are in the world. So they don't say back home. We still say back home because we're born and raised somewhere else. So this generation, unfortunately, has a little bit of a question mark and asterisk on it, because they're still thinking back home. They're still thinking the cultural issue. So they bring the baggage with them. So when we say that you, my brother, when you first started with your wife, the Sunnah is to say Allahu Akbar, to pray 2 rakat with her. You're declaring in the beginning of your life that the Creator is greater than the creation and the religion is greater tradition. So live accordingly. So we said, like the Shaykh Hafidahullah Abdul Rahim, he says, كان في مهنة أهلي أو خدمة أهلي. He used to help in the house chores. And so he's the best of creation. If you're a better man, by all means, feel free. But there's no one that's better creation than Allah created, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we have to actually recognize that fact, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. He's your role model. It says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, مَوَدَّةٌ وَرَحْمَةٌ, the foundation of marriage. وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةٌ وَرَحْمَةٌ. Mawadda didn't say mahabba, it says mawadda. Mawadda is the active, gentle, compassionate, forbearing love. It's the source of love. And this is rahmah, mercy. Now what is that? وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. So the mercy Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent for us is Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he says, he's your uswa, he's your role model. قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِي يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهُ. قُلْ تلقيني in مشروطة, conditional. جواب الشرط فاتبعوني, فاء التعقيب, يا الضمير goes to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which means what? He says, if you claim that you love me, what's the answer for that? He says, right away, haste by following Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you claim that you love me, that's how I'm going to love you, if you follow him. So we tell the brothers to do 4 things at least. Same exactly what the Shaykh said. He says, help in the house chores. We're not asking the brothers to quit their job and go ahead and ask serve at home. We're simply asking the brothers, if you see your wife doing anything, you simply ask her, do you need help with this, honey? That's really that simple. Number 2 is take the high ride. Take the high road, meaning if she's in the hole, don't bury her. Extend the helping hand to lift her out of the hole, like Prophet used to do. And you know what? Don't stop dating your wife. That's what I tell the brothers all the time. Usually when the brothers get married, they start working out. Doing the push-ups and they're lifting and oh my God, look, where's the beach and all of that? Yeah, gotcha. And after this, they take showers, they smell good, they dress well, they give them flowers, chocolate, poetry. After they get married, khalas. The young girl comes out, receiving a line, garlic, onions. Allah help us, wallahi. My man, yeah, it has to smell like one, dude. Okay, so what happens? The ayah is Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he used to beautify himself to his wife. I will not listen to you to give me proof in the Quran. So وَلَهُنَّ مِثْلُ الَّذِي عَلَيْهِنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ يَا أَخِي. So whatever you ask of them, give them. Before you take, you give. And you lead by example, or that you follow. And give her a nickname, at least. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam used to, in Sahih, kind of Aish, but Humayra ضعيف. He used to give her a nickname, radiallahu anhu. So you can call your wife Mimi, Tutu, Lulu, Fifi, Susu, whatever you want to call her, dude. But just give her something. So the idea behind it is the urf here. If you want to take with the urf, because the scholars differ, is the obligation upon a woman to actually serve? The jumhur, the majority of scholars say no, it's not an obligation. So we call it fadl, not fard. It's a benevolence, it's an act of goodness, not an obligation upon her. So the Islam leaves it like for Dubai, for example, like I know that sisters are not going to do this job. They hire things to do it. But we're poor people, like for me, we have an unwritten rule that, you know what, I do the outside, you do the inside. However, if the sister now, they both work, some of the scholars says they have to now make a deal. Listen, if we agreed our tradition, our in the mubah, in the zone, because Islam takes the urf, ma lam yukhalif nass sarih or hadith. We accept it as long as it does not contradict a clear ayah and an hadith that is authentic. So that's now mubah, now in the permission. If the mubah is known that you do inside, I'll do the outside, but you're going outside now, but she's helping. And she gets double the reward of helping you financially, not an obligation, but it's a sadaqah, double the reward for it, according to hadith. Now, what happens is if you're now doing as we agreed upon, some of the scholars says, okay, well, now she's responsible to get somebody to do the house chores from her own salary to be able to compensate for that. That's some of the opinions, not all. But now if we're both working, and that some of the people that will not be able to make ends meet, now you have to help also in the akhi. If she's helping the outside, you also have to help inside. So it's tashawur. It's you're consulting with one another. You're working on the same team. I want to make sure that you understand, brothers. There's no I in a relationship anymore. There's no me. There's no myself. There's us, we, and ours from now on. So you're on the same team, and that's one way to address it. That you're doing this not to get the brownie points. I'm doing it to follow the footsteps of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, because I want to be with him in Jannah. Again, hopefully, I'll bow out. No, the Shaykh will add.
But the brownie points are good too, man. Alhamdulillah.
Allahu Akbar. It helps, man. I know.
Okay,
the
Sheikh
niyyah is
Kamil.
for the sunnah to get the ajr.
Yeah, absolutely.
Alhamdulillah.
Sheikh Kamil, now coming to you, and it's a tough question, but I'm going to be asking you now. So now the thing is that brothers think that it is only the wife's responsibility to profess love, and normally people say that the husbands need respect and the wives need love. And if you kind of reverse it, they say that if it's okay not to be respecting your wife per se, and it's okay as well if you are not professing your love for your wife. So how do you actually kind of make sense out of this kind of a scenario?
I think once again by looking at how the Prophet ﷺ treated his wives, and you find that it was mutual. It wasn't one-sided. Whether it be respect or love, but rather you find it was mutual, and that's what the ayah attests to as well. وَجَعَلْنَا بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. We made between you, not that love is being shown from one side and not the other. And so this is more of a cultural thing, I'm sure. As you know, like many cultures, they have this understanding that the love comes from one side and the respect comes from the other, and so it needs to be mutual, and it's based on that mutual love and respect that a relationship continues. And so many times when we find marital disputes and discords, it's because of that balance not being there, expecting more from one side and not having that balance there.
Now, Sheikh Abdurrahim, this respect and love equation.
I think it's very important we understand, as I mentioned earlier, the nature of women. And a woman doesn't just want love; she wants respect. She wants both of them as well. And she wants to give you love, but she also wants to receive love. And through my experience, and that Sheikh Allah, he has more experience than us, inshallah, he can add some things and let us benefit. But what I understand, and I've actually talked, to my family, I've talked to other sisters. We have a course we give about, establishing the Muslim family, and the things that sisters really are looking for is 5 main things. And if a brother understands these and focuses on giving them, his wife is going to be, inshallah, the happiest woman in the world. And if she's the happiest woman in the world, inshallah, you're going to be the happiest man in the world. Alhamdulillah. So we want to go back to the brownie points and go back into getting the ajr from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah putting that barakah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned and putting the muwadda and the rahmah, this type of love and mercy in the household. And what did he say that? لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا, that you find that tranquility in your wife. She finds it in you find it in her. And أَنْتُمْ لِبَاسٌ لَهُنَّ, that you are a garment for them and they're a garment for you. So it's a mutual thing, as Allah said very clear in the ayah. So it's a mutual thing for both of them. It has to be from both sides. And even in the ayah we mentioned in Surah Al-Rum, جَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ, Allah put it between you. It's between. So it's not just a one-side thing. But these 5 things that I think have a huge impact on your wife, inshallah. First of all, respect, and then love, and then affection. And the affection is perhaps a bit deeper than love. Love is the general, the general thing, but that affection, showing that affection to her, and then the attention. Women love attention, and even that we sit down with some of our sisters and we advise them, the ones who do tabarruj, the one who put on makeup, the ones who put on perfume. Anytime we've asked them, sister, why do you do this? Talking about good sisters who have good deen, but in this aspect they're weak. All of them are looking for attention, whether it's a Muslim woman, non-Muslim woman. They do these type of things to get attention from men. So if a woman's in her household and she's not getting attention from her own husband, then she's going to look for attention elsewhere. And this is when many problems are solved. So she needs to get the attention. You compliment her. You tell her how she's looking good. Her dress looks nice. But it's just like you walk past her like she's not even there. She dresses up for you. And sisters have told us, wallahi, they dress up for their husbands. And her husband comes in the house And it's like he, subhanallah, like she hasn't done anything. She said, well, I get dressed up for him, I put makeup on, and he doesn't even make any comment, doesn't compliment me. So women love attention. And the last part is the intimacy, that that you are perform well in that aspect. If you're fulfilling those roles as a man with your woman, inshallah, she's going to be like we said, the happiest woman in the world, and make you the happiest man, inshallah ta'ala. And something very important that Sheikh Ala mentioned earlier is that sometimes we as men, we expect this from our sisters or from our wives, but when it comes to us, we don't do the same thing. For example, looking good. When it comes to looking good, like Sheikh Ala said, before the marriage, everybody's in the gym. And I remember we were on a retreat here in Turkey recently, and I was having dinner with my family, and I lost some weight, and I was working out in the morning with the other speakers, other sheikhs there in the gym. So Sheikh Haytham al-Haddad, he walked past and he said to my wife, he said, "Be careful, sister." He said, usually when a brother's working this hard, his intention is very bad. Huh? So alhamdulillah, but this was before this. Then later he has what? Instead of he has the big 1-pack, the 9-month. He's about to deliver. Subhanallah. But if his wife was good like that, he would be upset and he would be complaining. He stinks, but he wants her to smell good. Look at the sunnah of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. One of the first things he would do when he would enter in the house is he would start with what? With the miswak. And from the hikmah that the scholars mention from that is that he would smell good when he comes to to kiss his wife, when he comes to give salams to his wife. It's all from the sunnah, kissing your wife when you enter the house, when you leave the house. And even studies have proven that the relationship lasts longer. And these things are all in the sunnah of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Being a gentleman, like we said, continuing these things with your wife, and not just when you get married, but all throughout the marriage, and to keep the marriage. Like these are things we have, inshallah, to act upon his sunnah. He's our uswa hasana. He's our role model, alayhi salatu wasalam. So have this lifestyle where we want, you understand it's a two-way street. Just like there's things you want from your wife, she also wants the same thing from you. She wants to look good. And I remember, and I'm talking about like being in shape, because I know a brother, we were doing, and he divorced his wife, so he said she wouldn't lose the weight. But a lot of brothers are the same thing. Brothers complain, my wife got a bit big. Bro, have you looked at yourself in the mirror? You know what I'm saying? Also, a woman as well, she wants to see her man in shape. And she wants to see a man who looks good, I want to see something beautiful in front of me. So does she. It's the same thing. It's a two-way street. And when you take from these two ayat that we mentioned, about being libas for one another, and also ja'ala bainakum, Allah put between you. And this is it's a two-way thing, and that's how the marriage. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, in this, I know I went a bit too long on this. He said that the best woman is the one إِذَا نَظَرَ إِلَيْهَا أَصَرَّتُ. That if he looks at her, she makes him happy. And the scholars have mentioned the looks obviously is part of that, but also even the akhlaq as well, the manners. Because when you see a woman who is, she's beautiful, she takes care of herself, and the very important thing, it's not just about the beauty, but someone that takes care of themselves. Because we have problems with the sisters, even with the brothers inside the house, outside the house, mashallah, in the house, as the Sheikh gave the description about and you'll see that in the house, Allah musta'an. So the outer appearance, but also the inner appearance has a big impact on it as well. The akhlaq, the taqwa, the iman has an impact as well. But also he said in the hadith, إِذَا نَظَرَتْ إِلَيْهِ أَصَرَّهَا, that if she looks at him, that also that he makes her happy as well. So you see, it's the mutual, give and take, and that's what's going to make a marriage successful, inshallah.
Sheikh Allah, now coming to you, another issue which has been seen is that men are always complaining that I don't have time to give to the kids, I don't have time to give to my family, to my wife, etc. But what we've also observed, that they have their own kind of secluded area where they're either on their devices, if they are into gaming, they're playing games, or they're doing something else. This is now actually, and this problem has reached epidemic proportions. And we're not talking about kids, we are talking about adult men. So what is your advice, Sheikh?
That's a good question. I understand that it's something that is, it is actually tangible, and you're right, we have to deal with it, and it's not going to go on its own. So I learned this trick from my wife. The mashayikh know that we're always busy, we got a lot of things on our plate and so many things to do, but it's not an excuse. So I usually look at my schedule a day ahead to know what's going on. So on my calendar, I saw my wife's name. So I was going, that name looks very familiar. Yeah, it's my wife. So she was trying to give me a hint. Do I have to book myself in order for me to see you? Wallahi, that triggered something, Sheikh. It taught me a lesson in a beautiful way. So I came up with this method. I call it the Mayoff theory. MYOF, Mayoff theory. And the M stands for my time. The Y stands for your time. The O stands for our time. The F stands for family time. So I tell the brothers, listen, everybody's busy. I got it. Everybody's busy, but you have to do time management. The 4 Ds, right? Do, delay, do, delegate, delay, delete, right? So it's the big rock theory, right? You know the big rock theory? I mean, again, I used to be in corporate. I used to teach this time management course and all of that stuff. And it's not the time for it now, but at least let's stick with the Maya theory. I'm not going to ask you to go ahead and be, your average, perfect husband or whatever. You're a human being. So I'm not going to tell you to do something that is not going to last. Okay? So let's be practical on this advice. So my time, what I mean for that is, you know what? Maybe when you come from work, whatever it is, you need the downtime. Because Hadith says, you just can't come up and tell your husband all the problems and all the issues and all the kids. You need to calm down. And Abu Talha, right? And the Hadith is there. When he lost his son and so on, he came from travel. So I advise the brothers and the sisters to come up with the Maya theory and put it on the Google Calendar so they know exactly what's going on. So my time, listen, you can negotiate. I have an hour of the day. I can do whatever you like. I can surf. I can chill. I can play games. I can do the Macarena, raise the roof, do the funky chicken. It doesn't matter. It's my time. Cool. In return, I now realize that she's been looking over the kids and whatever it is. If the sister's not working, I also need to know on the why. That's your time, honey. I'll look after the kids. You can go ahead, do whatever it is that you want to do. You want to get a facial, pedicure, manicure, massage, shopping, surfing. It doesn't matter. Just chill, do nothing. You can stay away from whatever, anything. And the old time, I tell the brothers, you have to take out your wife at least once a week. Once a week. You have to go on a date. Because here's what happens. We take it for granted. Don't take it for granted. Sheikh Ibrahim alluded to it. Can't take it for granted. Don't ever stop dating your wife. That's what I tell the brothers all the time. Yeah. So at least once a week you go out. Sheikh, I don't have money. It doesn't. Listen, my brother taught me something. It's not the beautiful places that makes the memories. It's the memories that makes places beautiful. You can go on a coffee shop, man. Go on a walk. Dude, they love this stuff. Remember the emotional side, right? And that's among the secrets. They're emotionally based. We're physically based. So if you think about it, you just need to tell her, you know what? When the Sheikh says, the word that we can't say the word I love you. Again, back home luggage. You're a wuss. If you say to your wife, I love you, she's going to ride you. You're not a man. Wallahi, the best of men says, rizq hubbaha. I was blessed by her love.
Allah Akbar. Allah Akbar.
So we have a problem with understanding cultural issues. So if we come back to truly know who our role model is and how he dealt with it, how he turned the glass and ate, he placed his lips where her lips were, how he used to chew and give her, how he used to take permission, and on so many things that Prophet Muhammad used to do. And he's the best of role models. So you understand that fact? So that's the old time. And when you go on a date, if you talk about your problems and about your kids, I'm going to smack you upside the head. You need to talk. When you go on the date, you talk about, I remember the first time, honey, I seen you when my heart was aching, my knees were shaking. It's true, I ain't faking. You don't eat bacon. And I can do this. You know what I mean? You need to talk about, you need to revive this, Habibi. You have to also invest. Remember? The mawadda is in the beginning of the relationship. You need to invest here in the lovey-dovey mode, honeymoon. Investing in the relationship. Rahmah in the end of the relationship when you both get on each other's nerves. Yes? So you have to understand, Sheikh, it's a whole art. This, getting married is I do get a license, you're ready. No, you have to take a course. You have to take a course to drive, to get your driver license. Why don't you take a course to get your marriage license? So thinking about it. So the F time. Okay. So family time. Okay, this weekend, honey, we're going to go to your family. Next weekend, we're going to go to my family. Third weekend, we're going to go to immediate family, spend it with our own. And the kids have to pick whatever they want. Let's go bowling. Let's do something. So this is how you do it, akhi. So here's my last trick. Once you come home, I want you to put a box next to the door. As soon as you come home, you take out your cell phone. You take out your game, whatever. You take out all your social media stuff, your laptop, everything. You put it in the box. That's it. Because statistics show that a husband will spend from 20 to 60 minutes a day with their children. Isn't that amazing? And the rest is what happened, Habibi? No. So you need to take out all these distractions. Work is gone, khalas. Unless you're a doctor, I understand. But under normal circumstances, you come home, you take out all this stuff. You take this thing here, you put it out. Everything you put in the box. When you leave the house, you take everything with you outside. When you're inside, you're inside. So remember, the Maya theory, my time, your time, our time, family time. That's one way to do it. Allahu A'lam.
Sheikh Kamil, now coming to you. Now a related problem. Obviously, this is probably not the right forum to be discussing it, but I just want to touch base upon it because again, this is another one of those serious issues, which is the addiction to porn and men, especially the brothers. This is a pretty serious issue, which probably we are planning to do a separate session. But again, if you can just advise exactly the issues with regards to porn addiction, which a number of brothers have, how to deal with it.
Yeah, it is definitely a big problem that is increasing, is on the rise, especially with easy access to it, unlike ever before. And what leads many men to that, the statistics also show that, is that what happens is that the women, they grow in age, they have many children, and they're no longer appealing to the men, and so they start looking elsewhere. And obviously, this is not an excuse, and it's completely unjustifiable. The Prophet ﷺ, in a hadith, he said, if you see a woman and you're attracted by her, immediately go to your own wife, because she has what the other woman has as well. And so porn addiction is a major problem, and it definitely needs to be addressed. And I hope you do address it as a separate session, all on its own, inshallah.
I think a very important part. I mean, you can't really. It needs a separate session altogether, like you said. Because this actually is a pandemic. I'm talking about in the days of pandemics. This is definitely a pandemic. And a scary stat is that when you look at some of the charts, I don't know if any of you have seen these. Like the color charts where they show like 60%, 80%, and the percentage where they watch these the porn sites. Many of the Muslim countries rank in the highest in those stats, even sometimes more than the West. You would think in the West it would be more, but actually in Muslim countries, and sometimes it's even the rates or even higher, unfortunately. So what happens here is that the marriages are being destroyed by this, because these women, what they don't understand is that a lot of them not real women anyway, operations and this and that's their job. That's what they're to do. So he's coming out, he's seeing this beautiful woman who's, fit and trim and has all this, plastic surgery everywhere. And then he looks at his wife. And this is so what's happening now is he's no longer attracted to her. And the marriage starts to be destroyed. And at the same time, also something that happens is that a person who eventually gets addicted to the porn is that even that they cannot perform later with a real woman. It's just that fantasy. He has to be in front of the screen in order to get the fantasy. When it comes to even be able to perform with his wife, and this point here, I focus on a lot with my students, the younger brothers who are like in high school and university students. That look, I know a lot of you guys get involved in that, but you have to realize that sometimes you get so involved is that you come, and we've had problems with this. People come with their wives and they just got married and he has the real thing in front of him, but he can't perform because it's just that fantasy. The real thing is not something that appeals to him because of what the addiction has done to his mind and then to his body. So it's a very, very scary thing. And here we're talking about, not even talking about the haram aspect, the issue of the sin that happens, subhanAllah, when you do that. I mean, all of us know that. It's something we're talking about from other aspects and the impact it has on you and on your marriage. I think that's something really to focus on, because this is what's happening in the households today, honestly.
Now, man, I just wanted to actually touch base upon it because obviously we cannot do justice to this topic in a few kind of minutes we have remaining. Now, Sheikh Khalid, coming to you, another issue which normally men, we can argue, have an incorrect understanding of is that they have an incorrect understanding of nushuz. And this is a pretty serious issue, especially in the Muslim lands where wife beating is kind of a habit. You know, Sheikh, what is your nasiyah? What is your advice?
Well, nashes has different meanings. The nashes meaning not just like maybe disobedient to the husband, also to his family, and there are different aspects of it, inshallah. So we want to take it, and don't want to take it out of context, but the way we behave towards it is, unfortunately, some of us, it's appalling. So the scholars say there are stages in order for you to get to the final stage, and that even that stage is an option you don't have to take. It's not like mandatory. If you go through these options, that's number 4. Well, you know what? I got to do this. And even if you get there, we are also restricted to do certain things. We use even miswak, and the miswak was just it's such a kind of a metaphor. It's not an issue that you actually do so. So please understand. First of all, you know what? The ashiruhunna bil ma'ruf. Did you do the ashiruhunna bil ma'ruf first, like the Sheikh was talking about? Did you deal with them in kindness and righteousness? Did you look at yourself? Remember the sandwich theory. Remember the missing tiles theory. All of that stuff. Did you do everything? So, for example, in order for me to tell the brother, listen, you got there. How did you get there? Do you think your wife stood up, woke up in the morning, did her wird, did her qiyam, did her tahajjud, did her Quran, then they prayed fajr, and then you had her breakfast to get everything else, and all of a sudden, out of no reason, was disobedient to you? Absolutely nothing. You know, if it is to be, it's up to me. I tell the brothers all the time, listen, you knocked on the door of this girl and you chose this girl. She didn't come after you. Did you pick her on the floor? And the only thing that they remember is one, and I'm sure the Mashaykh know what I'm talking about. So why did you pick this girl? Did she have the khuluq and deen? Did she have all of that stuff? And all of that? The true winning and the ultimate is the religious background and the possession of the other. You will lose everything. Or if she has it, you will gain everything. So I tell the brothers, it was you that knocked on the door. You picked this girl. Did you go through istishara, istikhara, azm, and tawakkul? Did you go through the consulting? Did you do istikhara? Did you do determination? Did you follow that? Put my trust in Allah. Or was it the reason that you do you know what kind? Did you do your homework? Did you go through the 4 steps, the 4x4? Did you know what kind of person you are? The 3 types of person that you have to. Are you a child? Are you a parent? Are you a mother? Are you an adult? Which one did you pick? Did you know anything about, and so on and so forth? Did you get married for the wrong reason? Did you get married for a piece of paper? Did you get married for? So I have to dig in order for me to heal the illness of that. So it says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَعِذُوهُنْ. Before the ashurhunna bil ma'ruf, deal with them in righteousness, because that's the reciprocating. And after that, he says, be conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Here's what the Quran states. Here's what the Prophet said. Let's go back and do this. At the 3rd stage, that's not working yet. You go back and you get like a person, that the head of the family, the people that respect and word of wisdom, the calm, cool, collective minds that will prevail. And one from her family, one from your family. They discuss, and on the 4th, you know what? This is the last. Before I divorce you, listen. Wake up. This is for real now. We're going to lose our kids. We're going to lose our lives. But remember, that 4th stage is, as I said before, it's an option you don't have to take. You cannot leave a mark. You cannot hit the face. You cannot do the same place twice. And. Then I raise the hand above the shoulder. Oh, there's so many restrictions. So Prophet Muhammad says, this person here, la khayra fi. This person is no good, this man here. He says he treats his wife like a beast in the morning, and he wants to be intimate with her at night. So when I tell the brothers, listen, Sheikh, have you done like when we talk about, how to treat your wife before? The prevention is better than cure. Look at the root cause analysis. I tell the brothers, when you say, I love you, it doesn't have to necessarily say I love you. If you're a practicing brother, I will tell you at least 5 times, even though statistics show that you need to hug a person 8 times a day, 8 times minimum. So I tell the brothers that 5 times, if you're a practicing brother, I tell you, you have to tell your wife I love you. You can tell her I love you, but if you're the type of guy that you say if you're the type of guy that you can't say you do the la 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 thingy, then you have to give her a look, a hug, a kiss, a touch, a flower, breakfast in bed, a note on the fridge. Anything, ya ammi, anything. You understand? When we were talking about making love and all that stuff, do you think making love is when you get the night? Nice try, dude. No. وَقَدِّمُوا لِأَنفُسِكُمْ. Do you know when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, proceed for thyself? Yes. Maybe I understand one of the narration, which is your children come with you and family to Jannah and all of that stuff. وَقَدِّمُوا لِأَنفُسِكُم. It's also foreplay, man. Foreplay. Huge difference. And the foreplay starts at the beginning of the day, not at night. Yeah, which when you wake up in the morning. How many times that we did the terms of endearment? How many times did you text her, I'm thinking of you, and. All of that will not result to what you are, because wallahi, if I know a brother that he beats his wife, wallahi, if this happened to my daughter, his janazah is tomorrow. Because you think you the man? You the man? Okay, well, bring it. Come. Wallahi, Sheikh, you're not a man. As I said, you're a male. You just have a penis between your legs. A man will never do that. Because wallahi, alladhi la ilaha illahu, it's a debt you have to repay. I tell the brothers, listen, could you imagine your wife come to you one day, says, honey, I have some good news. Doctor told me I'm pregnant. So you prostrate to thank Allah for the gift He's given you. You put your hand on her tummy and you feel a kick. You start listening, you start talking, you pick names, pick colors, you paint walls. Can't hardly wait for that day to come, because that day will be called Abba. You never forget that day. And you never forget the day she actually calls you Abba. And you never forget the day she smiled in your face, made you forget the misery of the world. And you never forget the day she raised her hand to be carried by you. And you never forget the day she ate solid food for the first time. And you never forget the day she walked on her own feet the first time. And you'll never forget the day that you walked away from you to go to school for the first time. And you'll never forget the day somebody come up to your door, knock on your door, ask for her hand in marriage. This is how her father was giving you her hand. He trusted you. He trusted you. Could you imagine when a father says, I give you my daughter's hand in marriage, and he says, I accept marrying your daughter according to the book of Allah and the Sunnah of Rasulullah and the bridal gift that was agreed upon. Khan al-amana. Wallahi, you betrayed the covenant. And that's why if you think you're the man, Allah says, Taqu, come to me, my man. If you think, in gharratka qudrataka ala nas fatadhakkar qudrat Allah alayk. You think you're so powerful? Remember the power of Allah over you. So could you imagine this girl that stole your heart? Could you imagine you hear somebody else doing that to her? How would you feel? Go ahead, champ, deal with that. So before you do anything, think twice, because it's a debt. Somebody will do that to your daughter. Somebody will do somebody from your loved ones. So 4 things you have to do before you even think about it. It's an option that you don't have to take. Allahu a'lam. God knows best.
Sheikh Abdul Rahim, you would like to add something, or shall we slightly digress from this kind of a serious?
No. I think Hamza, what was said was more than enough.
Do you mind if I have to?
Jazakallah khair. Jazakallah
khair. Good to see you. Take care. Okay.
Yes, Sheikh Abdul Rahim. Yeah.
No, Alhamdulillah, I think Sheikh Ala, he definitely highlighted enough when it comes to that issue, inshallah. If you want to move on, inshallah. No, I think I think what he said at the end, subhanAllah. And even to be honest with you, I think a lot of times we talk about this issue and you think that makes you a man. A lot of us talk about that aspect of it. But the aspect he mentioned about it coming back to your daughter, I think that's something really people will need to think about that, That's something that none of us would allow, And I remember the only fight that I actually got into as a Muslim, I don't know if Cameron remembers or not. There was a bus driver when we were students in Medina. But he closed the door on my daughter's leg, and that's your daughter, And I beat the dude down, man. That's your daughter. I mean, I beat him up pretty bad, man. I mean, it's a long story. I mean, he drove the bus, and she was getting pulled by the bus and things like that. And people were telling him to stop. He didn't stop, so he got a beat down for it. But the point was that's my daughter, So I mean that sister that the brother's putting his hand on, that's also someone else's daughter. And that what Sheikh Ala mentioned about that coming back to your own daughter, I think that inshallah should make brothers think more. It doesn't make you a man. And then that's something that it's metaphorical. It's not, and the conditions must be met, and that you can't do when hitting a woman. And in the Prophet, he described the man as being the worst of them, the one who hit their women. So it's not something that that's acceptable or makes you someone who's strong. And in fact, even the yelling or that shows that type of weakness. I mean, when you have to scream to get your point across, or you have to become violent to get your point across, that shows that that's actually a level of weakness. And the true strength is, the Prophet said, the one who is the strong one is not the one who controls himself at the time of anger, not the one who can wrestle people down. So I think, inshallah, I mean, it's very beautiful, Shaykh Allah said.
Now, Sheikh Kamil, coming to you, inshallah. Now, another issue which we have kind of touched on it, but a lot of men, especially, and I'm asking particularly you this question because, especially in the subcontinent, in the Asian cultures, what we have is that we have a lot of men actually sitting like lame ducks at their houses and not working, and kind of, waiting for kind of the wives to make the ends meet and asking them to work, and and we have this serious issue, especially in the Asian cultures. I'm sure it's there in the other cultures as well, but especially in the subcontinent, it's heavy there.
And this even exists in the West, where we have government support, where a lot of men, they don't go to work, and they sit at home getting employment insurance from the government, benefits, etc. So they neglect that. They're sitting at home being very lazy, and then they expect their women and their wives to give their rights to them. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like the people who are lazy, but rather those who are diligent and those who are hardworking.
Something very beautiful that was said by Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, that he used to dislike and yakra, seeing someone who is not busy in bettering himself in the deen or bettering himself in the dunya. And this is the way of the true believer, that we have to constantly better ourselves. If a brother is taking support from the government, and I remember one of the things that we really faced as a community in Ireland that really made us look bad to the Irish society, as the non-Muslims, how they looked at the Muslims. They looked at, but it's not just Muslims, to be fair. Many of the people who are coming from, as they say, back home from the Eastern cultures who are migrating there, whether Muslim or non-Muslim, but a lot of them were Muslims who would take advantage of the system, who wouldn't work, who would get the benefits and just sit at home and chill out, make more babies. Each baby you get more money and things like that. And even I remember some of them, we would get benefits for the kids, and we would tell them, put them in the Quran school, send them to martial arts, send them different things. We always say we can't afford these things. So the government gives you 130 euros a month or 150 euros a month for each kid. So you can this is what it's for, for their betterment. But they would be taking that money to benefit from themselves. So that type of laziness, it gave a really negative impression of what Islam and Muslims are. Alhamdulillah, our brothers who are the doctors, many of the hospitals there, 60-70% of the doctors are actually Muslims. Alhamdulillah. So that made us look good in a way, alhamdulillah. But many people are taking advantage of that system. So and this is something that's not acceptable in Islam. That's why Umar radiallahu anhu, he looked down upon the individual. Even he saw one man who was devoted to worship in the Masjid al-Haram in Mecca, and he asked him, what do you do? He said, I'm just ibadah, I'm here worshiping. He said, okay, who takes care of you? He said, my brother. He said, your brother is better than you. Your brother is better than you. So this is the true believer is constantly trying to better himself. Alhamdulillah. Now with the, and we talked about this when we talked about isolation during the issue of the lockdown with COVID-19, that the stuff you can do online in deen and in dunya, both aspects, you can constantly, alhamdulillah, be able to better yourself, alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. That's how the believer needs to be. Even I remember one of my brothers, may Allah bless him, in Ireland, he was honest though. He was looking for a job, not the one who was cheating the system. But he said, he said, I can't find a job. And he was a teacher of the Quran, but he only memorized 2 juzus. But he said, I read the Quran all the time, alhamdulillah. So he said, why don't I at least, because I have to be responsible to Allah for the money I'm taking from this government, even if it's a non-Muslim government. But I had to better myself. He said, why don't I focus on memorizing the Quran? Well, alhamdulillah, in 7 months, he memorized the entire Quran, alhamdulillah. So at least someone benefited from his time and something and better himself and he in one aspect of the deen, alhamdulillah.
Naam, Jazakumullah khair, Sheikh. Sheikh Abdul Rahim, now kind of the last question before we move on to the audience question and answers, inshallah. Now, I'm sure a number of brothers would like me to ask this question, so I would ask this, inshallah, which is that which is a problem, as well as probably there needs to be some kind of an advice here, which is in the Muslim lands, apart from the Arab lands, especially you're talking about subcontinent, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, even I would say Malaysia, Indonesia, maybe even Turkey, you would know better. Now, this plural marriage, this is an issue which is kind of almost dead. You won't see a lot of families, a lot of men having multiple wives, etc. Now, what is your kind of overall advice in this situation? I'm not asking a specific question because, again, this is a very vast topic. But is this a sunnah? There are other sunnahs which are out there which the men can practice. But, again, is this something which is you would feel is a requirement of the time now?
I wouldn't necessarily say it's a requirement, but it's part of the deen. And some scholars see this being the asl, being the origin. And the ayah, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us to marry mathna wa thulatha wa ruba', 2, 3, or 4, and then if you can't, fawahida. If you can't, then be adil or be just, then only one. So many of the scholars say that this is the origin for the Muslim man, is to have more than one. And the one who can't, the exception is the one who can't be just, and he only takes one. Whereas many people now, they say, oh, the origin is one, and sometimes an exception to the rule is that you might have 2, 3, or 4. And this is what I follow is what our Sheikh Baz, rahimahullah, I used to say that this is the asl, this is the origin, is that it's 2, 3, or 4 is the origin of the man. And one scholar, I remember he did a research. He told me he had 3. So he did the research, and he said that from his research that every single Sahabi from the Badriyun, and the Badriyun, the ones who attended the Battle of Badr, that he said every single one of them, 313 or what the exact number was, that all of them had more than one wife. So this was the origin of the way of the Sahaba, the way of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Obviously, when it comes to the law, each country is different, and then you have to take that into account and be careful in the country that you live in. But it is something that has many benefits. And in fact, to be honest, we've seen that a lot of the marital problems that occur in a marriage, sometimes from the first marriage, are fixed sometimes when the husband gets remarried. I know the sisters don't want to hear that, And then some brothers come to us like, wow, the relationship with my first wife has become much better. And this is, once again, it comes from both sides of the marriage. What happens, for example, some of our sisters who are a bit negligent with themselves, once he gets married again, she becomes Bismillah, mashallah. But at the same time, sometimes, that we think as brothers that the grass is going to be greener on the other side. But sometimes when brothers get married again, they realize how beautiful their first wife is and how much they love her. And they're actually, sometimes you find a lot of times, actually, in many aspects, more attached to the first wife than the second wife. So actually, a lot of times brings the relationship stronger. So we don't always think that it's something that's something that just comes with evil. So sometimes it does come with a lot of good. But it is a responsibility. It's something that's not easy, and it's not something that every man can do. So I mean, each person needs to know what are my capabilities. Just because it's a sunnah, just because like the facts that I mentioned, even if we take this view that it is the origin, not every man can do it, and you have to be able to know who you are, and because it's not easy. If the best of women, the Ummahat al-Mu'mineen, the wives of the Prophet, if they became jealous, it was difficult for them to handle. So what are we going to think about our sisters? And jealousy can lead to a lot of bad things, that happen sometimes. And a lot of times in the beginning as well, there can be a lot of turbulence. A lot of times, some of our sisters, they freak out, they go crazy, they do things that you never thought they could do. Even religious sisters. But then eventually, they a lot of them, alhamdulillah, we've seen that they come back to their senses and realize it's not worth destroying my marriage and having my children be somewhere else. But in the beginning, some things have to happen. So not all men are going to be able to handle that turbulence that comes in the beginning. So it is difficult. And I remember the same scholar who told me about this research that he did about the Sahaba from Badr. He said, because a lot of people, they look at it as just the intimate side, that a man gets married for this and that's what he's benefiting is intimate side. But all the responsibilities that we mentioned in the beginning, all of them come with each one of them now. So he gave a beautiful example. And I can't pick up the table that I have now. It's a small one in front of me. But like the small tables that we have, or the small tables we have at the school, he gave the example of that. He said, you can imagine if you come and you put that on top of your head, like a small table like this, right? And you hold it for some time, eventually you're going to start getting sore on your shoulder. That's just one table. He said, imagine now if you come and you put a second table on top of that, and then you put a third table on top of it, and you're trying to balance that. He said, this is the reality of what it is. So it's not just that, at nighttime, mashallah, you're the king, and it's going to be, there's responsibility that comes with that, and not every man has the ability to handle that. But like we said, there are many benefits for important society, and when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what we have to remember, and this is for the brothers and for the sisters, that Allah is Al-Hakim. From the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is Al-Hakim, the All-Wise subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when He made part of His Sharia, that the permissibility for the man to have more than one wife, there's hikmah in it. And we can mention many of the benefits. And I think most people know them, but like many of our sisters, they don't want to, talk about those things, Just like when we go back to the question earlier about doing the chores in the household for the brothers. We know that's Sunnah, but we kind of want to let that be on the side. So if you would ask the sister now, she could tell you the hikmahs, the benefit for the society, for this and this. You'll find. And then you see the way of the Sahaba. If a sister, a Sahabiya, if her husband was killed in battle, right away they would step in. And after that, to marry her, to take care of her, to take care of her children as well. So you see many of the benefits that come from that. Like I said, it's not for everyone, but it is something that can, fill a big void, alhamdulillah, and a lot of the problems that we're having in society. And whenever we drift away from the Sunnah of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in all aspects, whether it be a major Sunnah or a small Sunnah, it's going to have ill effects and have negative effects on the Ummah.
Jazakumullah khair, Shaykh. Inshallah, now we'll start to take the questions from the audience. So, Brother Kamil, the first question you can see on the screen now.
What if the husband's attitude towards religion is non-serious type, while the wife's life completely revolves around Islam? So in that case, she always guides her husband to do the same. So I don't know, what the question.
The questioner is asking that what should the husband? I think husband is kind of. There's a second part to this as well. It's a very long-winded thing. You can have a look at this one as well. But what if the husband gets irritated by the behavior and wants to live his life freely, and a dispute over this happens all the time? What do you suggest for both husband and wife in this scenario?
Yeah, obviously, if the sister is more practicing the deen, and this is actually very common. What happens is many times one of the two will start practicing later on in the marriage, and usually it's the sister, and we've seen this a lot of times. And it does lead to problems, but the sister needs to have patience with that. She needs to realize that she needs to be very, very patient, and yes, he will be behind you. He'll be lagging behind, but if you remain with him, then and put your trust in Allah and work towards getting him to your level, then inshallah, if you do that, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be there for you. And we've seen that in many cases where eventually the man ends up catching up. He ends up catching up. Many times the man was not praying, and then later on, many years later, he starts praying because of his wife. So it requires a lot of patience from the sister side.
Jazakallah khair. Sheikh Abdul Rahim, the next question is for you. This is the question.
What if a husband does not give time and does not communicate properly? And this is a major problem. That's one of the the things that I think the Sheikh Ala mentioned. Why not take a course? And I have a course that I give about that, and it's for the people who are just getting married, but also for the people who are married as well, to kind of try to fix some of the problems that they have. The issue of communication, and what was the other part of the question she mentioned? If you can put it back up. The issue of the communication and spending time. Okay. So
Spending time.
And that doesn't give time and it doesn't communicate properly. So these are two major issues. I think it's it might even be more common maybe in some of the Muslim countries. I know in some of the Gulf countries, for example, where I lived a long time, the men are like basically never even in the house. SubhanAllah. You'll find that they're always out with their friends, always hanging out. And then they say they don't have time. So when you look in the Sunnah of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and when Salman radiallahu anhu came to spend the night with Abu Darda radiallahu anhu, and he noticed that his wife wasn't taking care of herself. So that's what's wrong. He said, your friend has no interest. He's not interested in women. He's just all ibadah, 110% ibadah. So when he came time, he wanted to pray during the night. First of all, he was fasting. He made him eat with him. And when he wanted to pray during the night prayer, he made him sleep and then pray later. And then he said something very, very profound. And this is how we need to focus as Muslims, how we divide our time. He said, "Inna li rabbika alayka haqq," that your Lord has a haqq, has a right upon you. Wa li nafsika alayka haqq, and you have a right upon yourself. Wa li ahlika alayka haqq, and your family has a right upon you. Fa'ati kulla dhi haqqan haqqahu. So give every single one its due right. You give Allah His right. You give yourself your right. Take care of yourself. You have your free time. And at the same time, you have time for your family as well. Very beautiful. I wrote down, and we benefit from one another. Alhamdulillah. I wrote down some of the benefits I benefit from Sheikh Ala. The MYOF. That's a good one. Alhamdulillah. And we actually divide the time like that with our family. That's very, very beautiful. So you have to give each one their right. That's their haqq. It's their right Islamically. When it comes to the issue of the communication, this is a big problem that all of us face. And sometimes, I think one of the problems that comes to that, and I benefited when I was studying with the brother, is knowing the nature. What is my personality? You have the different, like the disc thing where, am I dominant? Am I this? So sometimes the problem is that we don't understand the nature of one another. So it's very important to understand the nature of our spouse. And the problem is that sometimes even we deal with some families, they understand the nature, but they don't respect the nature. And this is a big problem. Sheikh Ala mentioned something brilliant. When the man comes home from work, he doesn't want to hear the problems. Give him his little downtime. Give him his little lazy time. And then come at a time. But there has to be a time where you let your wife know this is a good time to communicate. A lot of times the sisters say that the husband doesn't communicate properly. And that a lot of times is because you don't choose the good time. You don't choose the proper time. So you have to choose when is the good time for us to talk. But when you give them that time, brother, then you have to fulfill that. Then you have to make sure that you listen and you communicate during those times. So it's something you have to sit down. You have to. Sometimes we literally have to go old school. We sit down with the pad and the pen and we write it down. When is the good time? When I'm coming home, I'm tired from. It's not a good time to talk to me. Then we're not going to talk at this time. Even we have the other agreements. It has to be that this is our agreement, and we don't go out on it. And a good time for me is after I've relaxed, when I come home from work, I've had my dinner, we've sat down, I've had my cup of tea. This is a good time, for example. But this, once you give them the good time, bro, then you have to fulfill that. When it comes time, she wants to communicate. Now it's time to communicate. And the sisters, and sometimes we don't want to. I know, sometimes sisters like to go into a lot of detail on this, and men in general don't like too much detail. Once they get the picture, so it's give and take.
This is exactly the next question which is coming.
Allah Akbar. We understand the nature of one another, subhanAllah.
Exactly. So I'll request Sheikh Kamil, actually. This is exactly what the next question is.
So I think the best advice that we could give is to be patient. Many times you just have to listen to her. Yes, she'll go on for an hour, but you can't ignore her either, because she wants you to listen to her. That's her nature to be like that. And so to be patient with it, and also to advise her that I've got your point. Now we can move on, kind of thing.
Sheikh Abdurrahim, now this is a very important question which is now coming up, especially in the country which you're living in. There is currently a play from that country which is being aired in some Muslim lands specifically, but this is kind of a generic, I think.
Yeah. Actually, the crazy thing is, I actually made a video about this for my YouTube channel. But I haven't. I started preparing. I gathered up all the things I want to talk about, but I haven't actually made it yet. So maybe it's encouraged me to reminded me to actually do it. This film, and he's asking about like Urtula, and you can see any. There's a lot of good in the film. There's a lot of things which aren't correct. There are some things, dramatic Sufi things. Even the issue of Ibn Arabi, who was a very he's a figure obviously they shouldn't have put in because he never met Urtula anyways. A very controversial figure, and perhaps the producer, I think, during the later series, he might have realized that, because I think in the later part of the series he ended up not showing up anymore. Where in the beginning, that whenever he was in trouble, he would think, and then he would appear, and he would then almost like Astaghfirullah save him, from the situation that he was in. So then, there is a lot of good at the same time. It brought a type of izzah and honor back to the ummah, seeing some of our heroes. And I think that there does need to be, and with the scholars, this is not something I'm going to give a first one here now, but I think the scholars do need to look at the issue of, because if you look at the impact this film has had on the Muslims around the world, it's very huge. So it had a good impact on many of the Muslims in bringing them back to their deen and seeing that we do have heroes. But the problem is we don't know our history, and when it comes to the issue of media, we don't have proper halal alternatives. Whether you're starting from the lowest level for the cartoons for the kids. I talk to many people about this who have money, who have TV channels, but they never focus on doing these things. But this series shows us the impact that it could have. So you have to we need to get where we can have these certain things which are haram, to be able to take them out because these films have a huge impact on the people. But if you look at the amount of time that people spend on these films, it's a huge amount of time, and you have to see that. And you're going to be asked about that Yawm al-Qiyamah. Is this something that truly comes back with benefit? So I think we need to produce more high quality films, which will be closer to being halal alternatives, even historical documentaries, for us to know our Muslim heroes. Like when I did a video, you can check it on my YouTube channel. The Muslim commander who went 50-0 on the battlefield, and I said in the beginning of the video, we all know Floyd Money Mayweather, who went 50-0 in boxing, never defeated. What about the Muslim commander who went 50-0 on the battlefield? And I said, wallahi, most of it never even heard of us. And I have to be honest, when I received a video about him, I never heard about him myself. So this is something that that needs to be looked into. Getting that history out there, letting us know that we have heroes. And I have a khutbah I gave as well about Muslims knowing their history on a few YouTube channels. Actually, I think I forgot to put it on my own YouTube channel. So maybe upload it maybe later on tonight. But the importance of Muslims knowing history. And you'll see that we have so much in our history of true Muslim heroes, but unfortunately we haven't had someone who's put it out there for the ummah. This was a try in the film to put it out there. We have to be, I think, just in saying there was a lot of good, a lot of things that were taught to the ummah, but there are a lot of things that go against the Sharia in it as well. And I think more so than just the music and the women. I didn't mention that because the issue sometimes of the the issue, even Arabi and other things that were there, were actually worse than that. Allah musta'an.
Khair, inshallah. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Second last question, inshallah, before we have kind of 6 minutes to go. So this is the question for you, Sheikh Kamil. I think this has been covered to an extent But I think, but the brother is looking for some kind of practical advice. I think maybe he's shy, or I don't know. Yani, how would you?
Yeah, it's like what was already discussed. Yes, especially coming from certain cultures, the Pakistani culture or any other, it's looked down upon to help the wife, with the household chores. It's looked down upon, and if a man understands that this is a sunnah and he wants to do it, he'll be hesitant because of that culture that he comes from. And so, just like with anything else that our deen teaches, there's no shyness in it. We should not be shy. We should not be hesitant, but rather, if we're determined that okay, this is something pleasing to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, and it's from the Sunnah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and I'll be rewarded for it, then that will make the hesitation to go away, inshallah. And obviously, you're not gonna start doing everything in one go, but rather, the advice I would give is to start gradually, step by step, do something small, and then gradually build yourself. Wallahu a'lam.
And Sheikh, the last question again. I think Sheikh Allah has explained this in a beautiful way, but maybe the reminder benefits the believer. So if you can just do a summarized answer of some of the tips again for the brothers, inshallah.
That's very beautiful what Sheikh Allah said, and I think we don't need to add too much to it. I mean, just as a reminder, I mean, the issue, I actually wrote it down, 8 hugs a day. I wrote that down. It was pretty good, mashallah. I mean, make sure, do I get my 8 in, at least say 5 times, I love you. And subhanAllah, it's very strange for us coming from the West, where, it's something very normal for us to say, to our spouse, I love you, or even to our children, where there's actually a video on YouTube where they did it in Arabic, I believe it's in the UAE, where they had the kids, from, I think maybe like 5th grade, 4th grade, young kids, where they sent messages to their father, saying, I love you. And they're like, what's wrong? What's happening? And I remember even some coaches, our brothers also in Saudi and others, when they did this in their courses, they had them, send I love you to their wives. And so when they got it from their kids, the brothers, they were like, what's wrong? Why would you tell me this? And when the wives received it from their husband, they were like, what's wrong? Did you, are you sick? Is something wrong? Something gonna happen to you, or you die, or something like that? Because they're just so shocked to hear it. SubhanAllah. Whereas it has a huge impact, on the family. Even there's some studies proven that the marriages that last longer when the husband and he kisses his wife upon entering the house and leaving the house as well. And you can even find this in the Sunnah of our beloved Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So this is something to show that affection. And also what Sheikh Allah mentioned was very beautiful, is that it starts from the daytime. A lot of times we look at the intimacy, think about what's gonna the night part of it, but for a woman it's actually a work. Men we're different, and I think this is so profound for us to understand. Any marriage is going to be successful. You have to understand the differences between men and women. There's differences. We're not the same. We're equal in many aspects, yes, but we have to understand the nature of men is not the nature of women. And there's many good videos on YouTube, non-Muslims, who talk about this. You can even a study perhaps you've seen about the difference of the brain between the men and the women. Which then obviously the feminists don't want to hear about that, but even our brains function differently. We're different. That doesn't mean women are less than men, and men are we all, alhamdulillah, equal in many things. And men are better than women in certain aspects, and women are better than men in certain aspects. So alhamdulillah, but we have to understand that the nature of one another. Women, they need that. So for them, it starts in the day. So if you want, excitement in the nighttime, actually, it starts in the daytime. So it's kind of a build up and a workup for her. Showing the affection, showing the love, the nice word, maybe a kiss here, a kiss there, a hug there, and that works up to make it even something better for both of you when it comes to the intimacy side, during the nighttime or even during the day, whatever it might be. But it's a build up.
Especially nowadays.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. Yeah, in the lockdown, I think. Yeah,
alhamdulillah. Okay, Jazakumullah khair once again, Sheikh Abdul Rahim. We love you for the sake of Allah. Sheikh Kamil, same to you. May Allah reward you again. I think very well received session. Alhamdulillah, Sheikh Allah obviously made it as well, and we thank him as well. So inshallah, I hope once again, brothers, specifically, this session has been beneficial for all of you. The last session, which is going to be next week, is going to be with Dr. Muhammad Salah, inshallah, and Sheikh Aisha Wazbaz. And that particular question is going to be heavy on Q&A. So the request is going to be, whatever questions you have, we have our email, which is sun.night.raw@gmail.com, which you're aware of. Send your questions. We'll like to send the questions to the panel beforehand, because we have already received certain questions which are difficult, which are with regards to, for example, divorce-related questions, which the scholars even need time to kind of sometimes go through. So please send your questions again in advance, inshallah. Next week, same time, with inshallah, with the scholars, we'll be rejoining on the same subject once again, inshallah. So we thank all of you once again, Sheikh Abdurrahim, Sheikh Kamil, and the audience from Live Deen and IYC-I. Jazakumullah khair. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta. Astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khair. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.